And Rally is essentially an example of, hey, here's a coordination mechanism so that any project can essentially connect directly with thousands or tens of thousands of creators in order to, as I said before, own a narrative or like push a message through. Decentralized judge has made the assessment that your tweet is more relevant for whatever reason, right, based on these guidelines, and decided to give you more points than me, right? And so what GenLayer is basically this global, decentralized, trustless decision-making protocol, right?
Welcome everyone in our next episode of ZK Talks. Today's guest is Albert from GenLayer, and I'm super excited to have him here. Hello, Albert.
Hey, man. How's it going?
Yeah, all fine. Thank you. And you?
Very good. Yes, lots going on. Can't complain.
Yeah. We can start with your introduction a little bit, something shortly, who we are, what they are building, and so on. Please, if you can.
Yeah, so my name is Albert, background in computer science. I've been in crypto since 2013, multiple projects, NEM, Radix. My previous one was called StakeHound, was one of the first liquid staking solutions. And well, basically we started looking into, the world of AI when ChatGPT came out, right? We were totally fascinated by the idea of having, like LLMs being able to write code. So we started looking into, different types of like frameworks and like, approaches to using that technology. And eventually we came up with the realization that, there's actually a lot that you can do in crypto with AI that essentially expands what you can do in crypto, right? We've seen a lot of the primitives and things that you can do in crypto over the last few years, right? I think that now we're hitting a point where it's kind of like a bit stagnant, and we want to essentially bring the next generation of decentralized applications, right? And we do that through AI. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Wow, 2013. Yeah, it's a long ride already.
Ups and downs.
Lately, beside GenLayer, you started building also Rally. Can you tell us the story of how Rally was created? What was the inspiration or problem or idea behind it, please?
Right. So the way we look at it is, again, right, like we want to essentially enable completely new primitives in the space, right? And so when building GenLayer, we had a bunch of ideas, like things that we want people to build, right? We actually have, a builder program. We're trying to essentially get as many people to come in and understand what you can build on GenLayer that you cannot build really anywhere else, right? And so we're incubating some projects that we think just, make sense for people to understand what GenLayer is and like actually drives usage, right? Because at the end of the day, like you can build infrastructure if nobody's using it, right? And if people don't fully understand it because it's totally new, right? Then it doesn't work, right? Also, as a way to like test the whole framework, right? Because like there's a lot of different layers to GenLayer, and it's gonna, like there's a lot of work to do in terms of like making sure that everything works well, that it's scalable, that it's stable, right? And so one of the things when you're doing a project, really anything, right? When you're doing any type of business, right, is marketing, right? And I've always had the belief that if you want more of something, right, you need to kind of like build that thing, right? Like essentially, if you want more marketing, for example, you need to build something for marketing, right? So that's one way to look at this. And so one of the things that we see in the industry is that, there's lots of creators, right? There's lots of KOLs, influencers, right? This is not just in crypto, this is really in any industry, right? And there's a lot of mechanisms to like coordinate. At the end of the day, blockchains are just mechanisms for coordination across multiple parties at a global scale. And that's the crazy thing, right? Like we can basically deploy a contract that allows for many, many people to coordinate at once with very simple, primitives, right? And that to me is totally fascinating. And in terms of marketing, well, the question is like, how do you coordinate with communities? How do you coordinate with creators and KOLs, right? How do you, as a project, how do you reach to all of them and essentially, coordinate them in order to create a narrative, in order to own a narrative, right? And this is basically what Rally is, right? That's the reason behind is to be able to test the whole system and to be able to put out, an application that really shows what you can do, right? That's incubated by GenLayer Labs, And basically, it's just a way to coordinate creators and projects so that basically a project can simply connect to like thousands and thousands of creators and essentially get them to do something that is valuable for them, right?
Yeah, it all makes sense. So basically, the market target are communities, content creators, also influencers. So it's better for the business to choose your product to have the impact in the area they currently need. So
right. It's like the future of work is going to be very different than what things are right now, right? So like work will be changing in the coming years, right? We're going to have all these different agents that will be doing things for us, right? It's already starting. And so what we see is that, trust in that type of system is going to be challenging, right? Like, because at the end of the day, like I can trust you, you're a human, I'm a human, right? Maybe you know where I live, maybe you can come and you can, yeah. So the problem is that in the future, it's going to be very difficult to have frameworks of trust so that essentially you can trust another agent or your agent can trust another agent, right? Like, how do you create a system of trust that they can essentially engage with? And trust is necessary for commerce, right? So like the fundamental thing for commerce is trust, right? If I didn't have a legal framework, it would be very hard for me to be able to trust, people I'm buying things from, for example, right? Like you need systems of trust. Trust is a mechanism to basically simplify all the complexities in the world, right? It's very difficult for humans to be thinking about all the different, cases and scenarios that can happen in any type of relationship, right? We use trust as a way to basically say, hey, I'm happy to reduce the complexity of the world. I trust you, right? And I want to essentially work with you on something, right? So it's a very important aspect of everything, but especially of commerce, right? And so what we see is like things are going to go to this future of work where basically it's going to be agents to agents, agents to humans, super quick, super fast, super smaller amounts being transacted potentially. And what GenLayer is essentially like a trust layer for them, right? And Rally is essentially an example of, hey, here's a coordination mechanism so that any project can essentially connect directly with thousands or tens of thousands of creators in order to, as I said before, own a narrative or like push a message through.
Yeah, but we see lately a lot of marketing campaign platforms popping up because it's currently really hot. I would love to know how is the Rally different from the others.
Yeah, I normally answer like this, right? So what's the difference between Binance and Uniswap, right? So like not everybody can get listed on Binance, right? But everybody can get listed on Uniswap, right? On Uniswap, it's open, it's transparent, right? Censorship resistant. Anybody can participate, anybody can list on Uniswap. So it's basically the same here, right? You can have applications that are running on servers of companies, right? And they have, there's some benefits to that, right? So like there are some benefits in having centralized entities controlling a specific product. Now, when you're trying to make that truly global, that's a different story, right? And so what Rally enables is essentially this, permissionless marketplace of creators, right? And it's anybody can go in, can create a pool, can create essentially an escrow, right? And say, hey, I want people to be talking about my product. And if they talk about my product, I want the protocol to be rewarding those users by, depending on how much engagement they got, how the quality of their posts is, right? And so you can go into ZKsync, you can deploy a meme coin, right? You can throw in 10% of the supply. You didn't pay a single cent, right? So you just throw 10% of the supply and then define the rules of the game. You say, okay, if people are talking about the meme coin over the next few months, then I want this percentage of the supply of the meme coin to be distributed to them, right? And what this means essentially is that, while when you're looking at, everybody knows about KOLs, right? And it's just like, there's super big KOLs, right? There's medium KOLs, smaller KOLs, right? And they all add value to different approaches, right? Like it's very difficult for a super big KOL to be pushing certain products, right? For example, this meme coin, right? Because at the end of the day, they have limited number of tweets that they can do per day, right? They have reputation. It's a different type of thing. Also, it's super expensive, right? So what they do is they rely on these KOL managers that are basically in the middle, right? They're middlemen, right? They're connecting these KOLs with projects that want to do something, and that's how they essentially they send the trust, right? The reputation, right, of that specific project into the KOL, right? Now, when you're trying to do something totally open, right? What Rally is essentially this global creator network. Anybody can be part of this, and there's going to be campaigns for ones or the others, right? And they're going to be different type of campaigns, right? So basically, when you're a product, you're a project, you want to launch some campaign, you define, okay, I want only big KOLs or only small KOLs to be able to participate, right? And it enables completely different dynamics that right now in current systems, like in centralized systems, it just wouldn't be able to happen because it doesn't scale like that, right? In terms of the contracts are much trickier, right? Like the whole flow is harder to do in a permissionless way, right? That's why it costs a lot of money to get like listed on, say, for example, Kaito, right? Like this is normal because at the end of the day they need to take care of some infrastructure, and it's a centralized server that has a specific set of requirements, legal requirements and such, right? This is more like Uniswap. It's a permissionless protocol where anybody can create a marketing campaign, and then this global pool of creators can tap into it for deal flow and essentially generate value for the products, right, for the projects, in exchange of getting paid for it.
Yeah, so actually in terms of costs, it means that anyone can deploy for free, just choose how much they want to reward for, how much or how many rewards they want for the community, or there will be some costs also for deploying the contract on Rally.
So deploying the contract has the gas, right?
Yep.
Yes. Now the system, what it has also essentially will become a DAO, right? And that will have a small fee, right? If I remember correctly, it's 3% of the distributed rewards, but that's basically it, right? There's no upfront cost, nothing like this, right? It's again same as a Uniswap pool, right? You put it, right? Then in this case, like Uniswap pool it's a different type of model, right? Like you're trying to generate yield by enabling trade between other people, right? Here you are a project that wants to get marketing for it, right? So the service that it's doing, that's this 3% fee that's going into the DAO, but basically it's just totally permissionless. There's no other cost to that, right? Now you need to be smart in how you create the campaign, how you define the rules, and like the distribution mechanism, who you want to address specifically, right? Like who do you want, just small KOLs? Do you want a specific list of KOLs? You can do all of these different things, right? Make sense?
Yeah, sure. But in this case, we'll have also Rally some support or assistance for the projects, and maybe this will have some costs, because like if someone can't create the campaign but is going to Rally provide some assistance or something?
So Rally does provide some assistance, but at the end of the day, it's a self-serve, right? Like anybody can come in and can create it. I think that, as you say, right, like for example, to do a proper campaign, right, you need to think about the model, right? More than Rally providing the assistance, Rally is basically just this permissionless protocol, right? You can think about Uniswap again, right? So there are consultants that offer services of, hey, you should be deploying the liquidity pools like this, right? Like they're looking at that specific thing, right? There's a lot of marketers in the industry, right? So marketers will be able to come in and say, okay, let's say that you're a KOL manager, right? And you have this pool of KOLs and you want to organize, a campaign with them. You can either go one by one and contracts and the payments and like reviewing all their content and back and forth. All of that is a lot of work, right? If you can essentially remove that by just having a pool, you just throw in the tokens and you say, okay, these are my KOLs. I want them, these creators, right? I want them to come in and be able to participate, right? So I'm pretty sure that there's going to be, it doesn't need to come necessarily from Rally. It's just anybody will be able to do this and I think make money from it. So I'm sure that that's going to happen.
Yeah. If we imagine the process, right? I will open the website. I will set up what I want from the community. This is the focus. Let's write about this. I have to send I have to provide the money front run before I create the contract. So I'm sending the money on to the contract and then just deploy it, or?
So the order is you go into the website, right? That's app.rally.fun. Right now it's in alpha, which means that still like Rally is the only one, like Rally Foundation is basically the one that's creating the first campaigns. But in the next few weeks, it's going to be essentially going into beta, and then anybody will be able to create campaigns, right? for example, on ZKsync era, right? So it's going to be one of the first networks it's going to be deployed on. And basically what that means is then you go to this website, you go to manage campaign, and you could create a campaign. Now there's a bunch of different steps, right? You define the campaign. You say, okay, I want you to be talking about pre-videums, and I want you to be saying these specific things, right? These rules, these guidelines, this style. You can define a bunch of things that you want in the campaign. And then you define as well the distribution mechanism, which is, I want to reward this many tokens over this duration, this number of epochs, right? So let's say that you want to do it through a month, week. Every week, it's essentially an epoch, right? So that would be 4 epochs. And now what's happening is that the protocol every week will gather all the people that have been eligible to participate in the campaign. Anybody can come in that has, like you can whitelist them. You can say, okay, they need to have minimum 1,000 followers, for example, right? You can define different rules. And then all of those people will be able to participate by basically tweeting and sending the tweet into the protocol, right? So when you send the tweet into the protocol, then the protocol connects to GenLayer, and then GenLayer looks at the tweet, all the consensus, right? So GenLayer is essentially this consensus made of different AIs that together agree on a specific decision, right? So it's like the goal of GenLayer is to make trustless decisions. In this case, the trustless decision is, why you should be getting 500 points and I should be getting 400 points, right? Well, because this decentralized judge has made the assessment that your tweet is, more relevant for whatever reason, right? Based on these guidelines, and decided to give you more points than me, right? Then what happens is at the end of the epoch, well, the system, already has all the calculations of who has, got how many points, and then based on that points, distributes the rewards to every one of the participants by itself.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense, and yeah, I like it. Just one more question regarding the permissionless. If anybody can create a campaign, you are not worried there will be too many spam or something, like someone will start creating campaigns with $0.01 value or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely am. I think that it's the same as Uniswap, right? How many fake pools or how many scams are there in Uniswap, right? At the end of the day, I think that, the front end can help with that, right? Because at the end of the day, the front end can say, okay, I think that this campaign should be prioritized or not, right? I think that that's like also maybe where the DAO will potentially take it, right? Because you can essentially give priorities to different campaigns and so on. But essentially, at the end of the day, it's a permissionless system, right? And that's the beauty of it, right? Like you can come in, you can launch this meme coin, nobody knew about it. Like, is that a scam? I don't know. Like, depends if people, right, trust you and trust the project, right? Here, they just have a, trustless system to get rewarded if they actually, like they talk about it, right? You will not be able to like take out the coins when you put them in, right? So like basically, once the epoch starts, you cannot move those assets out, right? So now it's a binding contract, right? It's like, okay, I've got this, $1,000 in there. Anybody that tweet will be able to get part of this, yes, and then you cannot remove them, right? But yes, I'm sure that there's going to be lots of noise. And there's a couple of things we can do. So basically the intelligent contracts, right, understand a bit of like, the context, and they understand as well, they have judgment and common sense, right, through the AIs to understand, for example, if, something is, for example, defamatory, right? So, and you can basically say, like, okay, this protocol will not accept, campaigns that are defamatory, for example, right? So you can do that. Although at the end of the day, it's like, I think that the protocols need to be essentially as unopinionated as possible, right? This is permissionless. It's totally open, censorship resistant, right? Anybody will also be able to just, fork it and do their own version of Rally, right? So it like the market will take it where they want.
Yeah, I like it. I really like it. Also, one more question regarding this. AI is checking the content, right? Mm-hmm. What is the speed? What speed can actually the AI get if there is too many projects and too many posts? How much it will take to actually check the post and go to the next one?
Right. So maybe it's important to understand a bit of the architecture, right? Which is there's the GenLayer chain. The GenLayer chain is a ZKsync, ZK stack, right? An elastic chain, right? And what that means is that, well, elastic networks are really, really quick. Yes, that's good because then, you can basically get the submission is in and then the consensus kicks in, but the consensus is being run on the chain itself, right? But then it's connected to all these different validators, right? So there's 1,000 validators. Each one of them is connected to a different AI model potentially, right? Some of them will be the same, some of them will not be the same. But essentially, all these transactions come into the chain, and then the consensus, which is on the chain, selects from these 1,000 validators, 5 of them to start the transaction, right? So one of them is the leader, downloads the tweet, goes to the LLM, makes a proposal to the other validators, and then the 5 really, they vote whether they accept or not that assessment from the leader, right? So they say, okay, I think you're saying that the correctness of the tweet is super high, but I disagree. I think it's super low. So thumbs down, right? Like thumbs down. Yes, they can do that, right? If they disagree, they rotate the leader, right? So it's an optimistic democracy consensus. That's the name of the consensus, right? Yes, it's an optimistic because it's only 5 of the 1,000 validators that are evaluating the work, and then they're making a decision together. If they disagree, they rotate the leader. If they agree, the transaction is accepted, right? So this depends really on how many prompts there are, right? With the current system of Rally, right, it's about 3 to 5 minutes per tweet. Now, what's happening then is that because from the 1,000 validators, only 5 are used, except if there's an appeal. If there's an appeal, it would double the validator set. So you can appeal multiple times, essentially doubling the validator set, right? And then if you have more than 50% of 1,000 that agree that this tweet was incorrect, yes, then it's pointless to kind of like dispute it further, right? So what's happening here is that while these guys are working on this tweet, these 5, right, other guys can also be working on this tweet, on another tweet, yes. So it basically depends on how many accounts there are, like how essentially the architecture of the contract, right, makes it potentially so that it's like, in this case, it's already right that basically different campaigns are on different contracts, and therefore they can be working in parallel, right? So basically right now, like in the way it's working is, so basically it's one of these can handle today like 280 something like this tweets per day, right? That's not very high, but that can actually be scaled about 10 or 20 times more, and it will be scaled in the next few weeks, right? So that's basically by changing the architecture of the contracts, right? We don't need to get too technical, I think, but basically like you can scale it much faster, because at the end of the day, it's like there's a lot of nodes, right? They are focusing on specific things that they need to do, and the bottleneck is more like there is a constraint on like comparing one tweet with the previous tweets, right? Like you have a campaign, you submit a tweet, you don't want somebody else to come in and copy the same tweet that you put in, right? That would not be nice, right? Like, this tweet got a lot of points, right? So I will copy the tweet, yes? So what the system does is essentially evaluates your tweet versus previous tweets, right? And this is really the bottleneck. So more than the consensus, the bottleneck is on the future tweet evaluation requires to look at the previous tweets, right? And they can only happen after they have already been evaluated, right? So that needs to happen in serial, it cannot happen in parallel, right? I think I'm getting too deep, but yeah, makes sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. I really like the concept of the rally, to be honest. Also wondering if you are planning to add some on-chain activity also on the rally, or it will be just the content?
Anything that is accessible through the internet, right? It will be able to understand. So, for example, you can make it so that, for example, campaigns can only be participated, but people that have let's say a Kaito score of over 500, yes. And now what's happening is that the contract is going and fetching that information, right? So we believe that for product the best way to go is start small, listen to the market, understand what people really are demanding, right? And then you can iterate. And again, it's a permissionless protocol, so anybody will be able to also like make modifications of this and think about different types of approaches and like information that can be interesting in order to empower the protocol, right? But yeah, we're starting like so Rally starting with something pretty narrow, right? It's quite trivial to then move it into, let's say, Farcaster and like let's say LinkedIn and like all these different Reddit, all the different networks, right? So it's about priorities basically, right?
Yeah, makes sense. Also, you don't have to answer here or go too deep if you don't want, but So we are earning points on the we are earning points on the rally right now. Is there any usage or connection in the future with the token? Will be there some token and how it will be connected, or what will be the role of the token? Maybe some insights. If not possible, I will get it. But
I mean, the reason why normally it's just not possible is just because of regulations. We're all trying to do our best to to make things work, right? And I think that it's from, like, if you're not already building something in Web3, for example, right? It's pretty hard to understand like all the constraints that you have as a project in order to do things properly, right? You start a business. You can you can grow, you can fall, but if you grow, really anything can kill you. There's just so many little details, right, that can kill your business, right? Like we've seen that firsthand in the past ourselves, right? Just a little thing, it can essentially destroy your business like overnight, right? And that's why everybody should be careful and should understand like how the systems, right, how the rules of the game are, right? I can tell you that like the Rally is a decentralized protocol, right? And like all decentralized protocols are going to be able to like they communities can essentially take them over, right? And they should be owned by the community. Now the question is like, how do you make it so that the community can own the protocol, right? And that's basically what tokens are for, right? So you should think about, if you're a project, right, how do you make it so that you can get the best of the community, right? The best people that are understanding what you're building to actually have part of it, right? Because if not, like it just doesn't work, right? It's not so easy. Like before, we were seeing all these different airdrops, for example, right? Like senseless airdrops. You just throw them all to whoever has a Pudgy Penguin, right? So we still see some of that, right? What we're proposing here is, hey, you have this mechanism that allows you to essentially create a campaign, totally transparent. Everybody can see exactly how much is in the pot, and they can essentially be competing with each other to essentially show their value to the protocol to then get that specific amount of rewards, right? Of tokens. The token can be stablecoin, can be anything like that, right? So that's basically where we are right now, right? Like we're building. So like we've incubated Rally. Rally now starts to get quite a bit of traction. So there's like 60 something thousand people in the wait list. It's growing every single day, right? I think that it's only a matter of time that people will really understand the difference. I think the first question you made, right, in terms of like centralized platforms versus decentralized platforms. Well, the question here is like, how can you really participate on the centralized platforms, right? It's the same type of thing, right? So I think that the market will eventually understand that this is a permissionless system, and as I said, there probably will be a DAO that will be able to get traction, let's say, right?
yeah, I'm really early user of Rally, and I'm really glad for this insight from you. Actually, I think I got everything what I had on my mind, what I need to know. But if you have some additional information, what you can share, like what's coming and so on, before we close this, I would love to hear something more.
Yeah. So I mean, basically what happened over the last few months, because really like the Rally Alpha started like 2 months ago, I think, something like this, right? So since then, what's happened is that the GenLayer protocol, right, needed to become more stable, needed to become more scalable, right? And that's improving a lot. I mean, I don't know if you agree, if you've been using it. So like I believe it's getting much better, right, in terms of the results it's getting. Now we're also like learning, okay, like this is the type of campaigns you should be creating, this is the not, right? Like it's like how you define the campaign really marks a big difference on like the the results of the campaign, let's say, right? Like as it would make sense, right? If you create a Uniswap pool in the wrong range, it's not going to do well, right? So it's the same type of thing. What I think that will happen is that there's going to be new types of features, but more importantly, I think new types of use cases for it, right? At the end of the day, you have this coordination mechanism where basically the deal is, okay, you define something and then other people are coming to try to essentially do some task for it, right? That's the the gig economy, the future of work, right? Like this will essentially also enable new types of distribution mechanisms, right? So what I said on the meme coin, for example, is a very clear example, right? But there's other models on top of this that you can do, not just the marketing distribution. There's other things that you can do on top, right? And also, like, you can do a lot more with Rally than that. So like, it's not just, forget about Rally for a minute, right? You can do, for instance, the same for bug bounties, right? You can do the same for code, right? You can do the same for a lot of different types of work, because this is essentially an escrow that is looking at what's happening off-chain to essentially decide to make a payment or not, right? So we're starting to see quite a few, other examples of this, and it's quite fascinating, right? Because these basically you cannot really do them anywhere else, right? Because like at the end of the day, it's like the world is messy, right? The world is, it's stochastic. It's something that's probabilistic, right? Yes, from quantum up, right? So like everything is just very messy. What GenLayer does is essentially translate this messiness, right? All these fuzzy logic, all this natural language, being able to process an image, for example, right? Like that's something that today Rally can't do, but it's coming, right? Because like at the end of the day, these models can deal with images. So it's just, how do you move the information from, let's say the tweet into the consensus, into the validators, into the LLM that will be able to understand an image and make a decision from that image, for example. Yes. So I think, yeah, we're just getting started. We've been working on GenLayer for 2 years now, right? Now it's at the testnet. Lots of validators already running it, and like there's movement, right? Lots of testing to do still. Like we need some more months to basically take it into mainnet, right? But essentially, it's a system that already functions, that's already working completely. Now it's just about improving scalability, improving stability, making sure that it works really well, right? And then there's a lot of work in terms of awareness, and that's why we incubated Rally, right? Because like we want people to be able to understand something that is fundamentally new, like GenLayer. To my knowledge, there's nothing else like this, right? And the only way that we can do this, because there's a lot of noise in the market, right? Like there's tons of projects that are creating tons of noise for, say, for example, decentralized AI, right? In my mind, if I think 10 years down the line and I think, okay, in 10 years, there needs to be a decentralized artificial intelligence. In my mind, it doesn't make sense that decentralized artificial intelligence is a single model, right? Because if it's a single model, it's a centralized model. Yeah? If it's a single model that you're asking, you're getting the biases, you're getting the opinions, you're getting the ideas of a single model. When you want to decentralize that, such as you want to decentralize the legal system, for example, and you have different courts, right? Different layers of court, different judges, right? Like there's a framework, right, for the legal systems that essentially allow you to decentralize the decision making as much as possible, right? And so what GenLayer is basically this global decentralized trustless decision making protocol, right? That you can like a court for the internet, where you can just put a small contract, a contract that normally you wouldn't even like, because you trust, you wouldn't even like go to a judge for, right? Because like, okay, I've got this influencer contract, right? There's $500. He didn't deliver or something. I'm upset. Like, what do I do? Do I not pay? Do I pay? Like how it happens, right? Or the other way around, right? Do I go to a judge for this? Do I go and spend thousands of dollars, if not tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? And time to dispute this small contract, right? Now, this is what GenLayer enables. It enables that you have now a trust system, a trust framework, where you have this court of the internet, this decentralized AI, decentralized AIs, right? This consensus of different AIs that are resolving this contract in super fast, super cheap, like like we're talking, $1 or something like this, a couple of minutes, and then you got a response, right? We're in a world where like there's basically 5 billion people that don't have access to the legal system, right? We're in a world that is just it's going to be struggling a lot when all these AIs come online and start to deal with each other, right? We're seeing a lot of different frameworks, right? We see the 8004, right? Or we see the X404, right? Like that's basically different frameworks of trust as well, right? But they're normally more focused on reputation, right? You are putting that the trust should be just on reputation. The problem with reputation is that it works, and then it doesn't work. Yes, and then how do you adjust to that, right? So trusting just reputational systems, I think, doesn't really cut it, right? What you can trust is essentially a smart contract system that can essentially make the decisions as a trustless third party. Yes, and so that's what GenLayer is. So yeah, I think it's just very early. There's still a lot of work to do, but to me, it's just fascinating that you can build these new types of primitives, and it's going to be, I think, a lot of fun because you will see totally different things, right? I mean, just this other thing called Unstoppable. So you can find it at unstoppable.fun. It's basically you have these these games, these mini games that you can create yourself. So you can create a game. You just put the prompt, right, and then I send you the game, right? Now, in the game, I put, let's say, $500. Now, you can compete with me to basically try to get the $500, right, by essentially putting a little bit to the pot and then, trying to get it out. Yes? So that thing, that's another type of primitives. Anybody can create one of these pots, can send them to anyone else. Anyone else can participate and see if they can beat the AI, right? The AI, the consensus is essentially the game master that decides who to reward or who not, right? That's like, there's no one else, there's no one there making the decision. It's just this group of AIs making the decision, right? So you can use it for investment DAOs, for example, right? You can have a DAO that really is a DAO, right? That is, the contract itself makes the decision on what to invest or what not to invest, and nobody can touch it, right? Like there's no back door, there's nothing that you can go in and say, oh, I want like this. No, it's totally on chain, totally transparent. Everybody can see how it works exactly. But the decision making, right, the judgment of whether this project or this other project, it's not up to some committee, or it's not up to just like some one person that like can pocket part of it and just run with it, right? Yeah, I think that one thing that we're seeing right now is that we're losing a lot of control, right? Basically, you don't choose what videos you're seeing on YouTube. You don't choose what you're seeing on Twitter. You don't choose whether you get hired or not, right? You don't choose whether you get paid on insurance or not. It's for the most part an AI, right? Or like some computer system, right? Today is some computer system. Very soon it will just be AI, right? And it will just become more and more and more AI, right? And we're losing control, right? And the problem is that this control, this power, this decision-making power is only all held by a very few people. And we think that it needs to change, right? We need to find a way to decentralize that. Just that, it's so early that still it's not like so present to the people, right? Like to us, it's very present that we need trustless money, right? We need Bitcoin because we don't want to have third parties that can tell you, no, you cannot transact, right? Or you need to do KYC and AML, and maybe I'll give you the money, maybe not, right? You need to be, there's a lot of constraints that a bank can tell you to, oh, I'm going to close your account. You're going to transact out. You're going to send it to this specific country, for example, right? It will be the same, in my opinion, with decision making, just that it will be just in the hands of very few that control the AIs, right? So our challenge here is like, how do we create a system that is truly decentralized decision making, right? That essentially removes them, and sure, it will be using OpenAI, it will be using Anthropic, and it will be using anything else, right? So just all of them at the same time. So maybe one of them will try to block it, the other one will be able to allow it, right? It being any type of transaction that you have in front of you.
I have to say, to be honest, I'm really glad that I'm so early to GenLayer and Rally, and you made me so excited right now. Yeah, love it. Simply love it. Love the concept, love the idea, and we definitely need it in the future. And yeah, awesome.
I think it's very fun. Also, I'm very happy that we're with the ZKsync family, because it will essentially make it so that GenLayer is accessible from any other chain, right? So GenLayer is not really competing with other blockchains, right? What GenLayer does is essentially it empowers all of them to be able to essentially now do more, right? Because Rally, you can deploy it on ZK also on Base, also on BSC, also anywhere you want, right? And all of that will be because it's on the ZKsync stack, right? Because of the instant finality, because of its, its bridges already. Like it has a lot of infrastructure that allows us to, for example, the scalability piece, right? We don't need to worry about getting, like what happens if there's 10,000 transactions per second, right? Like, well, it enables many, many more new types of applications. Because at the end of the day, the cheaper the transactions are, the more applications you can enable, right? The faster it is, also the same, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think it's a very, I'm very, very excited by it, because I think it's just, really going to be needed in the future. Also is useful today, right? Then with the stack of the ZKsync stack, it enables us, proper scalability and finality and the security of the system. But then also the whole GenLayer network itself, as the AIs become smarter, the whole network becomes smarter. So there's things that you cannot do today because of the state-of-the-art LLMs are not capable of doing that. But in a few years down the line, it's going to be able to do it because it will become cheaper and faster and more intelligent, right? So yeah, to me that's just totally fascinating. It's not something you see every day, right? Like a protocol that can evolves over time, right? And every single day it will enable by itself new types of applications. So
as I said, you made me extremely excited, and yeah, really appreciate your time and your breakdown to Rally and GenLayer, and happy you are building on ZKsync, respectively ZK
Okay. Yeah, thanks for having me here. Happy to jump anytime you want, right? Like I'm sure there's going to be many new projects and protocols built on top of GenLayer, right? And yeah, ZKsync is going to be the first place where they're all going to be, right? It's just going to be able to connect directly, right? All the Elastic networks immediately will have kind of like native interactivity in a way, right? So like we're very happy here. It was like the team has always given us incredible support, right? So we love the tech, we love the team, the whole community really, right? Like you guys also helping a lot, like to make sure that people are aware of this, right? And yeah, I think it's gonna be awesome.
So thank you, Albert, and thank you everyone for watching.